We have Dr. C.K. Narayan joining us with some interesting analysis. I won't tell you what Dr. Narayan will.
Good afternoon. We are going to take a look at a couple of stocks from a technical investing point of view. Now, the idea here is to pick some stock which is fundamentally strong and where the charts are also indicating something which is of a positive trend. And if we combine both of these, then we'll have probably the best of both worlds. With that idea in mind, I have picked two stocks which will be part of this program. The first up, we are looking at Endurance Technology. Now, Endurance Tech is a rather recent kind of listing in the market, and it's a very good play on the two-wheeler trends. It's a major supplier to Bajaj Auto, and now it's actually broadening its clientele to include Honda as well as Hero Motors. Now, what you find on the charts of Endurance Tech is a very, very strong uptrend, which lasted about 15 months. And within this uptrend, you saw a lot of strength coming into it by way of volumes, by way of momentum strength, etc. And during the last about 5 months or so, the stock has been undergoing a correction. And in this particular correction, we find that it is retaining its high trend strength, and which is enabling us to make a forecast that things will turn better from here. What works for the stock is about the low float, the large institutional holding, and the sustenance of the trend. And what we can look at as targets from the current levels would give us at least about 17% to the upside, where a target around 1550 seems to be rather likely. And if the markets were to be favorable and sustain the trend even further, then we can even possibly look at about 1660 across, let's say, a 1-year time frame. Now, that makes, I think, Endurance Tech a reasonably good bet. A very strong chart on the uptrend, a very strong situation with respect to the corrections. The first leg was down to something we call as a 38% retracement. The subsequent legs all holding up much higher. What we are awaiting is an upside breakout. I think there's expectations of earnings improvement. What is holding back the stock perhaps is the high valuations. It trades in the 50 to 60 times bracket currently, but with about 20-25% growth which is being projected by most of the brokerage reports which are out there, I think the high valuation situation will get remedied, and that is what is reflecting on the charts as a possible breakout or as a possible completion of the corrective movement. So, Endurance Tech could be a buy at the current levels 1250, 1260 with an expected target around 1550 at the bare minimum.
TK, what else is there on your radar? I mean, the second stock which you have, is this also connected with a two-wheeler stock?
Yes, indeed. The second stock I have for you is GNFC. I think GNFC has been around long enough for most people to be aware of that as a stock, as contrasted to Endurance Tech. Now, although it started as a fertilizer company, it's now become increasingly more of a chemicals company, and it's almost drawing about 65% of its revenue from chemicals. And what we are seeing is that even though the fertilizer business is not doing too well, the chemicals business is more than making up for its losses there. And recent results, I think, have revived the trends in GNFC quite substantially. And I think it's a reckoning that the chemical business is doing very, very well is what is actually buoying up the stock. But as it moves up and as new trends are emerging in the stock, we are finding that at about the price level of 500, it has quite a decent amount of supply which has been holding the stock back for quite some time. The earlier drive up also stopped at about 500, although all-time high is at about 545. What the stock did over the last about 5 to 6 months is undergo a reaction from about 545.50 area to down to about 360. Now, that reaction, even though it seems sizable in terms of the quantum, I think it maintains its momentum strength all through that correction. And this is one of the things that we look at in technicals, where the correction needs to be holding on to the strength that has got built up during an upswing. And prices, after completing that correction for about 5 months, are now once again in an upswing, and they have almost reached the earlier points of about 500 rupees, which as I mentioned earlier has been a point of supply. So if we look at the, let's say the longer term charts of GNFC, we will find that once the prices are above the 500 level, I think something that could get enabled because of the expectation that fertilizers as a business is likely to turn around this year. And if you look at it from a fundamental angle of valuation, you will find that it is not too expensive, considering that it's trading only at about 9x compared to about 20x for most of the others. So once this 500 levels is exceeded, I think the stock will be well enabled to at least do a retest of the 545, 550 area. But I think it will probably carry on till about 600, which will present you with about a 20-22% short-term price target to the upside. I think the chart is extremely well placed right now to reach that minimum target at 600. Curiously, most of the brokerage reports have an average price target around 600 level. What what you can probably see here on your chart is the fact that the whole thing is actually moving up, and it's into a kind of a sideways consolidation. The pattern seems to be complete, and now the upside is actually emerging from there. So I would believe that stock is well placed to move past 500 first, reach up to do a retest at 550 former highs, and then probably continue. I think good results flowing in the way that they have, the inexpensive valuation, the high level of interest, and of course the TDI factor, which always gives it an extra fillip to the upside. I think all of this will combine to produce at least a 20 or even a 30-35% if you were to look at GNFC across a longer period of time. So I think GNFC is the second pick for the week, a technical and fundamental investment idea.